Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the debate of the week. And from the description, you probably don't know what's going on. You just see light versus dark. Now you're probably thinking, the debate of the week, light versus dark, what is that? Is that something about Star Wars or something? No. We have a debate here that I don't think most people are going to think about. It's been talked about in some ways, form or fashion, but not really debated against. Who is the better one in the WWE? The Dr. Thugonomics John Cena or John Cena C Nation? Yes, I'm putting up a debate. Who is better? Especially in this day and age of the WWE 2012 into going to 2013, because this is November. Who would be better for the WWE right now? Not counting about if the WWE has enough faces or enough heels. Who is the better character? Is it Dr. Thugonomics John Cena when he was purely dark, turning into the light Dr. Thugonomics before he switched over to going to the generic face John Cena? Or is it John Cena, the generic face, who is cheered and booed at the same time, which has become the standard for him? Which one is better? Which one would be better in the WWE? Let's say if the WWE wasn't having problems with politics. In other words, what Linda did and wasted at least $100 million, maybe a little bit more than we know, but at least $100 million. What would the WWE be like if Eddie Guerrero hadn't died? If Edge hadn't had to retire? If Chris Benoit had not died and done what he did? What would happen with the WWE if they didn't have to worry about what happened with the World Wildlife Federation and having to lose their original name? If those factors are removed, who would be better between the characters of John Anthony Cena? This is what we're going to explore here. Now, I admit, I started watching, and I've said this many times already, I'd stopped watching wrestling by the beginning of 1991 at least, because of all the things that was going on in my life, and I sporadically watched wrestling on and off for those years. By the time of 2002, seeing how the WWE was at the time, I saw John Cena rise whenever possible, especially if I didn't have cable all the time. I had to find it by going to a friend's house or something, or watching an antenna for SmackDown. When it comes down to it, the way we saw John Cena in the beginning when he first started was very generic. He wore those tights, he wore those boots, and he was not the prototype that everybody remembered from OVW, if you were a smart mark. I'd heard about him being the prototype. I managed to catch a little bit of OVW from those years. And he had, next to the hair, a very interesting character back then. Not too much different than how he acted in the years when he first started in WWE, not OVW. Pretty much what you saw when he was the Dr. Thugonomics was how he really was. Really. How John Cena really acted then was his true character. At least by my perspective. It can always be someone else that says, no, you're not right. He acted different than that. I can understand that because probably people saw a lot more of it than me. I didn't really catch Raw much all the time while he was still the Dr. Thugonomics. But I can say that what I could catch of Raw and mostly SmackDown, from what I saw in OVW, isn't that much of a departure. It's very similar to where he really was. That is the John Cena I've seen. And people really did like. From what I can understand, even if you didn't believe he was going to amount to anything beyond the mid-card, he was a very good heel. At first, when he started as a face, he wasn't very interesting. When he turned heel, it was more interesting. By the time he got over as a heel and did a partial, then full transition to face before he switched to what he was after 2006-07, was good. People really did like him. When he won the U.S. Championship and changed the belt to a spinner belt, people was very divided about it because the belts haven't been changed in quite a while, especially when it came from WCW. So there was very little change. People were very surprised about it. But it was different. And that is the key when it came to John Cena. He was different. Very few times did people try to incorporate rap or the hip-hop culture into some type of media and do it properly. He did. Now, I understand that when it came to ECW that there was, I forgot the name of that wrestling tag team. I believe it was called Public Enemy. Now, they did a little bit of they did a lot of wrestling, but they did a little bit of pop culture, a little bit of rap and stuff, but not that much. Another guy was Too Cold Scorpio, I believe. He was from ECW. He had a certain sort of hip-hop culture. Ron Simmons, the one that we know as Farouk, he didn't do much of hip-hop culture. He was in a different direction. But there was always something, once in a while you saw a scene of it. But John Cena, taking away about the race, and this is not about race, ladies and gentlemen, he was, what I can see, is the only one who prominently was featured with the hip-hop culture persona, which wasn't very far from who he was. He was known to like rap. He was known to like hip-hop. That was who he really was. And that's when I think one of the main things that he got so over as a heel, and mostly as a face, while he was still within that persona of the Doctor of Thugonomics. He was over because everyone who was into hip-hop or rap could identify with him. They could fully identify with the way he liked basketball, how he liked his football, particularly how he liked his baseball. And he still kept the culture going. That is how he was. His wrestling wasn't that great. He wasn't that great as a wrestler. LVW wasn't that great either. But because of his persona, it kind of balanced it somewhat out. So during that time, I know he won the US Championship. Then he won the WWE Championship. He won it. I'm just saying the beginning between 2002 to 2006, within that range. He did win maybe more, a couple of times more. I'm not going to say how many more times because I didn't do a heavy research on John Cena. I didn't want to get overwhelmed with it and get a headache because it would get annoying. So that is the John Cena we know from 2002 to about 2006. It still sticks a little bit beyond that, but then when he moves to Raw after 2006, his persona changed. And this is the John Cena from the C Nation. This is the John Cena that we talk about that is for the troops, who runs around to Make-A-Wish, who basically doesn't rap anymore. That's one. Doesn't have any type of attitude like he rapped. That bit went out the window once he went to Raw. That is gone. They completely changed his persona. They told him that bit, what you used to do about the chain gang and all that bit, gone. You can do a new theme song because you don't need the Dr. Thugonomics anymore. But still, we'll give you that. But your attitude will have to change. You can have a more bit of an edgy thing, but when it comes down to it, this is at the beginning. This is how, at least how it was when he was transitioning over. Not when he fully transitioned, ladies and gentlemen. Not saying he still does that. He's not even close to who he used to be. But this is how it was when he was beginning to transition, just before he started having a feud with Randy Orton. Or just when it started. This is how he was. He started transitioning away from pop culture to become more generic. More of a straightforward face. Didn't really add in any real big amounts of rap, pop culture, and hip-hop. It was basically straightforward, not classic heel, but not classic heel. Classic face, not like total face like we knew from the 80s and the early 90s. But a generic type of face that he was right for what he was going to do, and he wasn't going to do anything wrong. This is how it was. He worked with Triple H, he worked with Batista, he worked with Randy Orton, of course. He worked with several other people. He worked with Bobby Lashley. He worked with a whole bunch, Hulk Hogan. The list goes on. But does that mean he had signature victories? I'm going to do signature victories for both, as well as I'm going to go through the 5 tools of them all. But I'm just going a basic history of them both. Comparing the two, when it comes to the meeting people, John Cena of the Thugonomics era compared to like the C Nation era is very different. John Cena of the C Nation era has more people he's gone up against. He's had more time to develop his character. He had more people he faced. Now, When it comes now to the 5 tools, and I'm going to say it like this, and I could go a little bit further with the story of John Cena, what he is in 2012, but you really don't need that. Once after 2007, his character was set, and he's been like that since then. But now we're going into the 5 tools, comparing the 2 Cenas, the Thugonomics Cena and the C-Nation Cena. When it comes to physique, John Cena's physique has not changed. It has been basically chiseled. He is basically a former bodybuilder that became a wrestler. That has always been known. That is how he is. That is how it's been. Now, when it comes to mic skills, admittedly, John Cena of the past, who is the Mr. Thugonomics, didn't have as a more of a polished compared to John Cena of the C-Nation. It's just true. This John Cena was more raw. The Dr. Thugonomics was more raw. The other John Cena is more polished. He had more time to learn how to work on talking. So in that respect, in talking, the John Cena of C-Nation has the edge. But in substance, that's more interesting. I believe the Thugonomics Cena was much more interesting because of his hip-hop background, because of how he really acted as himself. You could see it much more clearly from the Thugonomics Cena than compared to the C-Nation Cena. Now, when it comes to charisma, let's be honest. When it comes to charisma, face or heel, you have a certain charisma. John Cena as a heel, I believe, before he switched over to being the Thugonomics John Cena face, was much more charismatic. It was raw. Yes, it was raw and it was still sloppy. But it was much more interesting than his face persona of the same John Cena era. When it comes to the C-Nation era of John Cena, he doesn't have that much charisma. He doesn't. Oh, you know that he can get the job done. But it just doesn't have it. People chanting, yet, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. It's not enough. He just doesn't have it. That John Cena is very dry and generic. The John Cena of C-Nation is nothing compared to the Thugonomics John Cena, who was a heel. Now, this could also translate into face, and at some points it did. So you could still say Thugonomics Cena from either face or heel part of that era was much better. Now, when it comes to in-ring ability, there is no question. John Cena really hasn't really changed much. Even though he can do drop kicks, he can do other types of things in his job. Either era. He sticks with only the ones that seem the most impactful. The 4 or 5 moves of doom are the most impactful. That was at the time when he first started. When he went and did C-Nation, he just stuck with it. So both of them are dead even. There's no change when it comes to basically in-ring ability. There isn't. In-ring presence is different though. The John Cena of C-Nation probably would have more in-ring presence because of the chanting of let's go Cena, Cena sucks. You just know that either you're going to like him or you're going to hate him or you're just sick of it. That you don't even want to hear either one. But when it comes to the Thugonomics or to the face turn that he did of Thugonomics, it's not as prominent. Yes, he had a lot of cheers when he was turned face and he won the belt from JBL after several fights with him. Not as strong. In-ring presence, it's going to go to the C-Nation John Cena. Now, when it comes to telling a story, I know that sounds like the same thing when it comes to ability in ring. No, it's different. Your in-ring ability and the ability to tell a story with someone are vastly different. Having certain tools of how you do your ring work compared to how you work with the person in the ring can be a little different, at least by my perspective. If I'm wrong, I'm very sorry. But the 5 moves of doom, sorry, just check something. The 5 moves of doom is one thing. Using it with the drop kick and whatever basic holds you do are different how you apply that to someone. John Cena of C-Nation has had more people to work with than John Cena of Dr. Thugonomics. He has. But which one do you believe he could tell a better story with? Now, John Cena, Dr. Thugonomics, he was still very, very raw and new. So any work he did then was still quite raw and sloppy and choppy. The C Nation one, yes, is very generic. Yes, is boring as hell. We've seen the same stuff over and over again. But if you're going to say who could tell a story when it really comes to it, if they really have the right person to work with, might be an edge to John Cena of C Nation. But not by much, because you see, having the ability to tell a good story in a ring with someone is very important with the abilities of your skills. Like I said, the 5 moves of doom. But the thing is that sometimes doesn't always translate to the fans. You can have a great match with someone, but if the fans are not interested, the fans are tired of it because they've seen it, even if it's a great match, there's a problem. The fan factor is the key here. Now, who do I believe had better storytelling to the fans, and were they interested? I believe this is kind of hard because I can easily say C Nation John Cena, but we've seen him the same way for so long. The problem is the fans are really tired of it, even when they chant, "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." So I believe Dr. Thugonomics, no matter if it's heel or face, had a little bit more. Of course, he could not tell a very good story in the ring at that time yet. He was still very new. But because it was part of the pop culture, and the people could identify even more, having a divided crowd like that for C Nation doesn't always translate to having a great crowd. Sometimes you really need to have the crowd unified. And I believe during the Thugonomics era for him, he was much better. Well, my cat is thrown up. Sorry, don't worry, she'll be fine. But honestly, this is what the key is. You need to have, you can have your crowd divided. It happens. But when it's constant like that, it loses its luster. If the crowd did it once in a while, that would be great for John Cena. They have to have him fully behind either as a heel or a face. A lot of times you really need the crowd to be behind you. With Thugonomics Cena, face or heel, it was clear as a heel, he had the crowd booing the hell out of him because he was such a good heel. When he transitioned over to a face, a lot of the crowd went with him and continued cheering for him. They switched over from booing him to cheering, which was good. He had won them over. But by 2008, 9, and 10, when he started doing Let's Go Cena, Cena Sucks, that is when he really lost it. If it's once in a while, it'll be great, but he really lost something in the translation of trying to get the people over, and him constantly saying, "I don't care if you boo me or cheer me, I'm here for you," is a very bad move on my part. On my perspective. Sorry about that. My perspective is this. From time to time, you can have a divided fan base. You can. Counting on the situation and the storylines, counting on how you are, if you just switch your character from one side to another, from the dark side to the light side, from face to heel, there's no problem having them transition over with you. And there's always going to be someone who's going to boo for you. But if it's so hugely divided like that, and people say, "Oh, that's how we cheer for him. We'll do Cena Sucks and Let's Go Cena." Yes, there's nothing wrong with that, but having a constant like that can be damaging to a character that you're trying to prominently feature to other people who don't do that. If there's certain fan base out there, like for the people from ROH or somebody from TNA who don't watch the WWE product at all, stop watching it, they'll get bored with it. Hearing it all the time is boring. So that part I can say, the Thugonomics Cena, I'm sorry to make it so long, but the Thugonomics Cena wins out clearly. Doesn't matter which he is, a face or a heel. He had clear defining of his character. Now, we're going outside the WWE. We are. Now, the thing here is this. With WWE Studios, and I don't agree with it anymore, it should be either sold off or just shut down. When someone goes into that type of media and gets a large exposure, that's supposed to bring people in. Now, comparing the two, you can compare John Cena of Thugonomics and John Cena of C Nation, because at the time you had basically 12 rounds as well as the Marine. He did 2 movies. They both went to DVD, and they both didn't do anything. Media stuff like what happened with Hulk Hogan, what happened with who else? The Undertaker also did something with Hulk Hogan. What happened with Macho Man Randy Savage? He appeared at least in some cameo in some movie. When it comes to The Rock, John Cena does not have star power. He does not. Because it was done in-house and was not released to the general public in full bore type of fashion. And I say this like I said in my the way you fix the WWE. I said clearly WWE Studios was a mistake for the simple fact you weren't willing to expand out and do just like a regular studio does by just keeping it into DVD and basically doing limited showings. Won't expand your fan base. It'll only expand your fan base within the fan base you already have. You'll have people who are already wrestling fans who are going to see it, and then maybe they get another wrestling fan who's never seen it, bring it in. What happened with The Rock when it came to the Scorpion King and when it came to Mummy was that it was released to everyone. It was released so you could see this guy who was basically a wrestler who did some decent acting or flopped acting, it didn't matter, but you saw a guy with a good physique, who was good looking, who was interesting, and then not only brought stuff into WWE, it also gave that person more to try and become more than what he was. And the problem here with John Cena, he never got that far. The Marine, no matter if it was success or not, made them more money than anyone else, or 12 rounds. The same thing, they never expanded outside the fan base. So John Cena never really got anywhere. Nothing. If he left the WWE right now and tried to pursue a movie career, I don't think he'll be a very big star. Maybe he may get a chance at some good movies. Maybe, like with what is it? I can't remember the movie right now. Legendary, I believe. But honestly, even if you're working with great actors who are well known, if it's not released to everyone, it doesn't make a difference. And if he goes there, maybe he might become a success. I don't believe he will, but maybe he would. But that's if he leaves the WWE, because as long as WWE Studios is there, you're not going to get anywhere. So, wrapping this up, who was better? Was it the Dr. Thugonomics John Cena or the C Nation John Cena? That would be in this time frame if we didn't have to worry about the $100 million loss and the deaths of several wrestlers, as well as to fight with World Wildlife Federation, as well as the WWE becoming a corporate, going public. I didn't say that earlier, but I'm saying it now. But basically, with those factors removed, who would be better? Honestly, I would say Dr. Thugonomics John Cena. For the simple fact is this. You have someone who, at this time, the hip-hop culture is still very strong and hot. No matter if you're into hip-hop or wrestling, not hip-hop, I was about to say wrestling. Hip-hop, R&B, rap, it makes no difference. People are still hot for it, even after all this time. If John Cena rose now through the ranks and they didn't do the persona then, they allowed him to be who he really was. And I'm going to say this clearly, and I believe I might be right about this. John Cena, his real person, his real attitude and persona was when he was doing basically Thugonomics. This is a generic brand. That is not him. You really saw the real John Cena with Dr. Thugonomics, even if it was raw and it was stupid. That was him. And right now they need that. As a heel or a face, I believe he would be better as a heel first, just like he started, and then transitions into a face, but stays exactly as he is, because he wouldn't be that boring. Look at R-Truth. He tried the rap bit, but he didn't go all the way with it like a John Cena did. It basically fizzled out because he wasn't allowed to go far enough with it. John Cena, if he was in the Dr. Thugonomics thing from 2003 on to 2006, I'm very sure that he would be a success. Not saying he would get into the title picture. It would count on how they structured him. If they left him as he was, forced him to learn more than the 5 moves of doom, because those 5 moves of doom must be expanded on. His mic work, keep it raw in a sense that you keep it in a hip-hop type of persona. Try and expand outside will destroy it. Keep him in that. And he will probably do very well and bring a lot of people in. The John Cena of the C Nation, I can understand why they did it because of what happened with Brock Lesnar. But honestly, John Cena right now has become so tiring. No matter if people still cheer for him very loudly, and they still cheer, it's not enough. How long do you think he can keep this up? With Ryback in the picture right now, hopefully he will not be dropped like a hot potato. If he's not, eventually if Ryback gets well enough into it, they can transition John Cena into a heel. Not saying he'll go back to the original persona he was, but at least it'll be a change, because we don't got anything right now. But if John Cena was Dr. Thugonomics, and starting out, he probably would get over. And I believe he would be the better long-term talent than the C Nation Cena, who is too generic, who is too divided. And I mean the fan base, no matter if they are cheering and saying Cena sucks, look bad on the product. If it's done once in a while, that would have been okay, but it's constant. When it comes to his promo work, yes, he was more polished, but he didn't have enough substance. He's boring now, because we've seen the same generic thing. The John Cena Thugonomics would have been better. So I hope you like the Zane view. Subscribe and comment. I'm going to see if I can crank out as many of these videos as I can to kind of make up for my system blowing out and dying. I'm not going to show you my new system, my old one. You don't really care about that. You just care that I'm doing these videos. So give me a comment. Give me a little love of a subscribe. And I hope to see you soon.